In the 78-year history of the American Swiss Foundation, there have been two chairs that transformed our foundation: Ambassador Faith Whittlesey and Ambassador Shelby Cullom Davis. Tonight, we honor their legacy and friendship by bestowing the first Faith Whittlesey Leadership Award on Shelby's daughter, Diana Davis, and her granddaughter, Abby Moffat, and his granddaughter, excuse me. Let me first say a word about Faith. In 1990, as many of you know, Faith started our Young Leaders program, and over the past 33 years, there have been more than 1,400 young leaders. These young leaders are the key asset of the foundation. Now, through her hard work, Faith built the American Swiss Foundation one young leader at a time. The American Swiss Foundation is Faith's great legacy. She loved Switzerland, and she loved the young leaders. Now, Faith had a remarkable life. A widow at a young age, Faith raised a family and served as U.S. Ambassador to Switzerland not once but twice. She was a federal prosecutor. She was exceptionally close to President Reagan and headed his White House Office of Public Liaison. Her biography was aptly titled, "Backwards in High Heels." Faith popularized the saying when she remarked, "Ginger Rogers did everything that Fred Astaire did, but she did it backwards and in high heels." That was Faith. I'd like to now say a word about the other great chair of the American Swiss Foundation, Shelby Cullom Davis, who was a close friend of Faith. Now, like Faith, Shelby lived a remarkable life. He was born in Peoria. He attended Princeton, Columbia, and finally the University of Geneva, from which he received a doctorate in political science. He worked as a European correspondent for CBS in Geneva before joining the staff of New York Governor Tom Dewey. He served as first Deputy Superintendent of Insurance of New York State, and in 1947, Shelby Cullom Davis founded his investment firm specializing in insurance securities. He was wildly successful, like a Warren Buffett of his time. In 1969, President Nixon appointed Shelby Cullom Davis as U.S. Ambassador to Switzerland, and he served for almost 6 years. And Abby and her mother, Diana, hung out at the embassy where Ed McMullen was the ambassador for 3 or 4 years. And I think Abby will tell people that she went to kindergarten in Bern, I believe, at least spent a lot of summers there. Shelby was also a great philanthropist, and just a small example, my son is going to Lawrenceville School next year. You go there, Shelby Cullom Davis is like on every wall. He went there, but really a wonderful, wonderful man. Well, in the mid-1980s, I had the privilege of going to a party at Shelby and Catharine Davis's home, which was in Tarrytown, New York. It was a beautiful old house overlooking the Hudson. And I had a memorable time speaking with Ambassador Davis. He told me about his love of Switzerland. Now, he wasn't too happy with the direction of our mutual alma mater, Princeton. I can't imagine what he would say about today's Princeton, so I'll leave it at that. I also met Mrs. Davis, who was just a warm, loving, great person. I remember the meal was fantastic. Now, during the party, I met Ambassador Davis's granddaughter, Abby, and that evening started what's become a 40-year friendship. Now, about 20 years ago, I had the great fortune of meeting Diana, and who is one of the warmest people you will ever meet. Now, they say that the apple does not fall far from the tree. Whenever I spend time with Diana and Abby, I think of Ambassador Davis and Catharine Davis. They are both very warm, smart, incredibly generous, and most importantly, fun people. Now, when we decided to honor Faith with an annual leadership award in her name, we immediately thought of Abby and Diana. Both were close friends of Faith. She loved them, and they loved her. And by honoring Diana and Abby, we also honor Shelby and Catharine Davis, who love Switzerland and the American Swiss Foundation. And there are no greater supporters of the American Swiss Foundation than Diana and Abby. They provide us with incredible strategic judgment, support, and through their father, grandfather, and faith, they know our foundation and our mission better than anyone. Now, Diana and Abby know the importance of strengthening the ties between the United States and Switzerland. They know how much we Americans can learn from our Swiss friends about things like apprenticeship, innovation and entrepreneurship, and preserving freedom and liberty and the rule of law, particularly in the world that we live in. So tonight, to present the first Faith Whittlesey Leadership Award, I'd like to ask Catharine O'Neill to come up. Catharine is Faith Whittlesey's granddaughter and will be a member of the Young Leader Class of 2023.
Hi, everyone. My name is Catherine, and I thank you all for coming and honoring my grandmother. It's been 5 years since she's passed, this month, actually, and we love and miss her every day. I actually have a daughter myself. She's 8 months old, and her name is Faith. She's actually here, sleeping, thank God. But a little word about Abby and Di. I've known them my entire life, and we've been family friends on both sides of my family, and I couldn't think of doing anything else besides giving them this award. I mean, it's just a great honor to know you, and I know how much my grandmother loved you, so thank you so much for everything you do, and I love you guys very, very much.
So I'd like the first recipients of the Faith Whittlesey Leadership Award to come on up, and that's Diana Davis and Abby Moffat. And let's all give them a big standing ovation.
Well, maybe you didn't know this, but Catherine ran for an office in Wyoming. You can see she's a good politician. And thank you, Catherine and Bob, for your lovely introduction. I'm really honored, and my daughter Abby, we're so honored to be recipients of this first Faith Whittlesey Award. Faith was such an inspiration and force, and she brought people together, and she brought the two countries together. She was really a superb American ambassador to Switzerland. So tonight, I'd like to briefly share my parents' love affair with Switzerland. And actually, they and the young leaders, actually, the Swiss connection began in 1929 when my parents were on a train, an express train, going from Paris to Geneva. And ironically, they started talking and discovered that they were both going to the same program that summer, the Zimmermann Institute. So 2 years later, now married and armed with master's degrees from Columbia University, they returned to Switzerland to pursue their PhDs in international relations at the Geneva Graduate Institute, which Bob alluded to. Then 40 years later, after this chance encounter, my father was appointed ambassador to Switzerland. And it was a fulfilling 6 years. Together they built lasting Swiss friendships which intertwined the business world. My father was the guru of insurance and investment banking. The sporting world, they skied the Alps and they swam, despite the current, the River Arn. The cultural world, they'd go to these festivals in cantons. So when they returned to the States in 1975, they continued to keep these friendships. Winters, they skied in the Alps, the Swiss Alps. Then back in the States, they'd meet with young Swiss students and graduates of colleges and they'd invite them to their home on the Hudson River. And of course, every meal was topped with delicious, irresistible Swiss chocolate. These friendships deepened our relationship between these two countries. And it was really the beginning of the Young Leaders Program, a program we are so proud to support, and a program that Faith built with lasting connections. And as a renowned broadcaster, Paul Harvey would say, "Now for the rest of the story." So Abby, you're on.
I do have a little side story that pertains to my grandfather, which I wasn't intending to mention, but I thought I would, both my grandparents. They were very honored to get a lot of Swiss chocolate sent to them in the United States. And we would always, as grandchildren, be sitting there waiting for these packages to arrive and waiting with bated breath for him to open to give us a little Swiss chocolate. But he always put most of it back in the suitcase and bring it back to Switzerland because he said, Swiss chocolate is the best and I want it all for me. Anyway, I want to reiterate my mother. Thank you so much, Catherine, for that beautiful introduction, and Bob also. It is just so touching to be with all of you tonight. This is an incredible event, and it's so exciting that this award is being bestowed tonight. What better person and more fitting for this leadership award to be named in honor of Faith Whittlesey? Those of you who knew her knew she embodied what President Reagan, quote, said, "The greatest leader is not necessarily the one who does the greatest things. He is the one that gets the people to do the greatest things." No one could say no to Faith. I'm sure many of you in the room have experienced it. And as a result, she would always get things done. As ambassador to Switzerland, as Bob already mentioned twice, Faith demonstrated her skills as a consummate diplomat. In the early 1980s, while negotiating the Memorandum of Understanding on insider trading, the talks reached an impasse. But that didn't stop Faith. Faith recognized there was no point in staying in the conference room with emotions elevated, so she took the brooding parties on a hike, a long, exhausting hike. When they balked, she encouraged. When they whimpered, she quickened her pace. The more the men complained of aching feet in their dress shoes. Faith forged ahead effortlessly in heels, as already mentioned. She promised wine, cheese, and chocolates to those who came to the negotiations with an open mind. If they could make it to the top of the mountain, Faith had worked her magic. By the time the negotiators summoned the mount, no one had the energy to quarrel. And full of wine and cheese and chocolates, they reached an agreement, perhaps only to avoid another of Faith's treacherous alpine treks. Faith's legacy lives on in the American Swiss Foundation, not only in her brainchild, the Young Leaders Program, as already mentioned, but in the very spirit of all we have done and will do. I'm excited for the future of the organization. I know my grandfather and Faith would be amazed at how far we have come since their time and so proud of the path ahead. Mom and I are truly honored to be recognized for this leadership award. If we deserve it, it's only because of the models of leadership we see demonstrated at American Swiss every day. Our heartfelt gratitude for the stewardship and determination and persistence of the co-chairs of Bob and Marcus, and for the vision and dedication of our Vice Chair, Ed McMullen. For the constancy and energy of our new executive director, but a longtime team member, Vanessa Berry. I also want to give another shout out to the amazing team at American Swiss. It's not a big team, but they are mighty. So let's give them a round of applause. We are so looking forward to partnering with American Swiss for years to come, and we're so excited about the growing relationship between these two countries. It is vitally important, and thank each and every one of you in this room for helping to build the relationship between these two fantastic countries. Thanks.